Hello everyone and welcome. In this video I want to make a full review for Animal Crossing New Horizons. So what exactly do I mean by a full review? Basically, since the game released on March 20th of 2020, I played the game every single day. Most of the time I played for at least 30 minutes or more. Only in the last couple of months I've reduced that time for some of the days, but at the very least every single day I logged into the game, checked what's up to the town, and then called it a day. Because I've experienced most of the content that there is in the game, now that it's been a year since its release, I mainly want to express my opinions about the game, explain what it actually is, and address some of the views on it that often get shared around. It's not a real review per se, but I will explain what the content is in the game and the way I see it as a fan of it. Because I've seen what most of the game has, I think I have good grounds to talk into it. I wanted to release this video before or at least on the date of the anniversary, but I got a bit busy so I couldn't do it. However, I also wanted to see what the 1.9 version update for the game contained, as it could give us a glimpse of what we can expect for the game in the future. Some features for upcoming content have been determined out of it, so only time will tell for us to see what might be coming in the upcoming months or years. My original predictions for the game was that by the first year, they would have added all of the content that they had planned for the game. However, that might not be the case after all. For now, I want to discuss what the game is and what got added to it up till this point. I will try to have some fitting video footage in the background, but for the most part you can actually listen to this video as a podcast. I will also include meaningful timestamps in case you want to listen to a specific part. The video ended up way longer than I ever expected, so that's why I'm including this. With that said, let's get on to the video. Before we begin, I actually want to explain where I am coming from to make this review. Basically, I am a big fan of the Animal Crossing series, probably since around 2009, so it's been 12 years since I have been playing the games on the franchise. Back then, I was searching for Nintendo DS games online, I found the cover art for Wild World and it got my interest, so much that I decided to give it a try, and from then I basically fell in love with the game. I enjoyed the simulation type of games a lot, so combining that with the special charm that the game had is what hooked me into it. About a year later, I got City Folk. I even got Wi-Fi at my house for the first time solely for the purpose of playing City Folk online, which ended up being my favorite thing to do in the game, as I added random people to play with and became good friends with some of them. As time passed, New Leaf finally arrived after waiting for it for what seemed ages, and I also enjoyed the game a lot for its new features, but sadly I did not enjoy its online so much. The touchpad keyboard did not make for a very pleasant experience, compared to using a USB keyboard to communicate on City Folk, so I didn't play too much of New Leaf online, only some few times with friends. Then as time went on, I awaited the next mainline game, which would probably end up releasing on the Wii U, given that they already had HD character models from the Animal Crossing Plus application on the console. It was only a matter of time. But time passed and the Wii U stopped being the current home console, and no mainline Animal Crossing released for it. At this point, I only really waited to see when could we get a game for Switch. I didn't want them to rush it. I wanted it to be an almost perfect experience of an Animal Crossing game on a home console. A game with the core mechanics that I loved and like, and hopefully an online experience similar or better than what City Folk had. Eventually the game was finally announced to release in 2019, but ended up getting delayed. I did not mind this, I just wanted a good game. If it took more time for them to polish it up, I was willing to wait for it. With this said, I'd like to clarify that due to my favoritism for the franchise, my opinions might be a bit biased, but at the same time, being a fan of the franchise allows me to judge the game for what it is, what it isn't, what it can be, and definitely for what it shouldn't be. With this, I'm trying to say that I am able to provide a better approach at explaining the features and mechanics of the game, and not try to think of it potentially getting some content or features that will definitely not fit with the theme that it has. I'm saying this because people will often try and request some crazy ideas that realistically would never happen, and people build up these false expectations that simply will not come to be, and they get angry anyway when they don't happen. As such, I will be discussing with my franchise knowledge and won't delve really into what can't be. With this said, and having explained where I'm coming from for this video, let's begin. So now I want to discuss basically what is the game, basically what it has, the content on it, how it's similar or different from past entries. So let's touch several points. First of all, this game actually has a bit of a storyline, which is a first for the series. In all of the games prior to this, you start in a town that has a couple of villagers, you have all the shops there. It's basically something that already exists. What they did in New Horizons is that from the beginning you start in a completely deserted island and you go through this little progression storyline where you get to the point where you would normally begin in all of the past games. So this involves getting your house, getting some stuff, so your facilities, your shops, and at the end you need to basically get to a decent looking island. You need to get it 3 stars so Geeky Slider holds his contract and you can call that part complete. Basically it's basically the tutorial of the game. In past games you had the tutorial where you worked for Nook and he taught you basically the main mechanics of the game. But here you have this little progression system of you growing the island and you get it to a point where it's an actual place where people live. So I thought handling like this was cool. It's like a breath of fresh air. You know, this time around the introduction to the game, which is basically this, it's a bit longer than usual. When you do the working for Tom Nook in the past games, it usually takes, I don't know, an hour at most if you do it right. But here you actually, if you play in real time and you don't time travel, it takes about 2 weeks if you know what you're doing, if you follow closely what they are telling you to do. It might take you longer if you are not reading carefully, or maybe you get stuck getting to 3 stars. But I thought it was a cool way for them to do it. As I said, you start growing the island your own. And then the reward is what you get after this is done. So when you finish this story part of the game, you basically get to the real substance of the game. Before that, you're actually given some restrictions. There's some stuff in place that you cannot get, but after you finish, you basically unlock what the rest of the game is gonna be. And it's basically, it starts with the Terraform. The Terraform being, of course, the tool, the island designer, that allows you to customize your rivers, your cliffs, the ground, all of that. It's basically a god mode. And that is one of the biggest and greatest features that this game has. It allows you to basically have full customization over your island. Besides the location of like the plaza, the airport, the pier, the river mouths, these things you can't modify, so you actually have to choose them accordingly if you want when you are choosing the layout of your island at the beginning. But besides that, you can actually do what you want in the game. You can move the houses, the facilities, the shop, anywhere you want. As long as there's space, you can place them elsewhere. And this is such a great addition, because like in the previous games, in the older ones, there were some signposts, and that's where villager houses could spawn. And in New Leaf it was a mess, because they would just spawn wherever, and sometimes they would ruin your stuff. Here you can actually choose exactly where to put them, and they give you a preview of where they're gonna be, so you don't miss out anything. And this level of creativity was just never seen before. You were pretty much stuck with the layout of the town you chose in all of the different games. Some of the older games you actually had to wait until you arrived to the town to see what the layout was like. Some of the more recent ones that actually allow you to see the map and choose from a different set of them before you decide, but you could never modify the main terrain. Here you can modify the rivers, the cliffs, everything as you desire, and this level of creativity is one of the biggest points this game has going for it. Now, to add to the Terraform point, another big thing from this game is that you're able, for the first time, to place furniture outside of your house. This is a great improvement from the public works projects from New Leaf, which were a set amount of items and you actually had to unlock them through villagers wanted to talk to you. It was random and it wasn't consistent. I think sometimes you could go, if you played a little bit every day, you could go like 3 weeks without getting a new one, It was really bad how they did it in New Leaf. But here they walk away from most of the system because you are able to place any item of furniture except wall items on the ground outside of your town, and you can decorate with this. So this only bumps the level of creativity another level. So because players can decorate their islands however they want, they can make them themed, they can make areas that are for specific stuff, they can customize how they want using the furniture that's in the game. And this is something that's really big, given that one of the main focuses of this game, or the main points that it has, is decoration and customization. So more than ever before, thanks to Terraform and placing furniture outside, you can really get your town basically how you want it. Next up, another main mechanic that changed how things used to behave in these games is the DIY mechanics. The DIY basically allows you to find different recipes. You can find them from balloons, from villagers, some you can purchase on the shop, for different types of items, and they've added a lot of crafting materials that you can gather around, you save up, and you use them to basically craft these types of items that you find the recipes for. What this allows you is changing a bit how the furniture and sometimes clothes acquisition worked, because in the past games mainly the only way that you could do it is if you bought them at the shops, or sometimes you could get them as presents, I guess. But basically you had to first get an item and then you could possibly order more through the catalog, right? Now what this allows is that actually there's stuff that you can just completely make yourself as long as you collect the materials, which is actually not that hard depending on the resources that you need. Some of them are naturally in town all the time, some of them you might need to do some extra stuff, but the point is you can get the materials and you can craft the recipes as long as you have learned them, and as long as you have the materials required to craft more, you can craft a lot of these items. And there are some really cool recipes in all of the ones that are available. They're not just limited to what you would think that you can craft. There's some nifty stuff in there, like all of the zodiac stuff. Sure, you need the star fragments, but like you wouldn't normally just craft them out of what they give you, but they make for cool items anyways. And to contribute to the DIY mechanic, a lot of seasonal stuff was delegated now to DIYs. So this basically allows seasonal and holiday stuff to not be finite like they were in the past. Normally you would get like one copy of a specific set of furniture and that was it. But now, because they are recipes that you can make, as long as you have the materials, you can actually make a lot of these items, some of which are good for decorating. So that's the main point of the DIY, and I think it's a really cool mechanic that they implemented to switch up a bit how we are used to handling stuff in this game. Similar to the DIY mechanics, there's also a customization mechanic that sort of returns for New Leaf. However, instead of waiting about 30 minutes like we had to do in that game, this time around the mechanic has been relegated to an item that you just buy a certain amount of, depending on what the furniture item that you want to customize is, and this way you can just do it at any time you want. Most of the items that are DIY recipes can be customized, and they offer different types of customization, like changing the texture, color, or even adding some of your custom designs. It certainly helps to give some variety to some of these items, so you can choose the aesthetic that you like the most. Now, regarding both of these mechanics, there was a bit of a controversy initially when the game launched. The tools in this game happened to break, unlike the other games where they never broke, only the axe would. These didn't make players so happy at the beginning, because you have to keep crafting their tools all over and over again. However, eventually they also found out that if you customize your tool, it just resets the durability. Eventually people just leap to accept this, and I don't really think it's such a bad thing. After all, one of the main points of this game is the crafting mechanic, so of course it makes sense that they want you to be crafting your tools all the time. Maybe if the durability of the base tools were a bit higher from what it actually is, this wouldn't have caused so much of an issue for most players. I personally don't believe this is really a problem, because it just adds to the substance that this game wants to give out. So I don't really have any problems with it, but it was worth addressing. Another great improvement in this game is the amount of space you have for several things. For your pockets, you have 40 slots to carry items around. As for custom designs, you used to be able to have 50 pro designs and 50 normal designs, and with the latest update they actually increased it by another 50 for each category, so if you want to decorate you have more space to do it. As for the storage, after some updates, the maximum amount that you have right now is 2400 items that you can store. This is such a big number, and it's actually good because since you need to store resources for crafting, it's great that they give us more extra space to utilize on these things. As far as collectibles go, there's 80 types of fishes and bugs and 40 types of diving creatures. There's way more artworks than there have ever been in any previous game, so there is a lot of variety going through the seasons if you want to collect all of these for your museum. There is also the new feature of the Nook Miles program. This is basically a set of stamps or cards that have different objectives for stuff that you would normally do while playing the game. Some of them have stretch goals, so you will take a lot of time doing them. For example, there's one for bugs and fishes that you need to catch 5,000 of. However, some of the others have more easier objectives that you can more realistically do. There's also the Nook Miles Plus activities, which are given daily and are more shorter tasks that you can probably do as an objective, and they reward you with the miles. The miles themselves are used as a currency that you can exchange for some exclusive items, including the much discussed Nook Miles ticket that you can use for going to Mystery Islands, or that most players have adopted as another currency. The Nook Miles program basically gives you some micro objectives that as a player that just wants to enter and play for a bit can seek forward, and they can get rewarded by redeeming the miles for either an item that they want, or maybe you can get the tickets and trade with other players for some other stuff that you might be interested in. Next is the visitor system of this game. In previous games, during a weekday, there was a chance that you wouldn't have any visitor in your town, or sometimes you would have filler characters like Pete the Mailman, who you only really talked to and he pretty much did nothing. In this game, for the weekdays, there are 9 possible visitors at the time, and the way that it works is it operates in a 2-week system. The game will schedule a visitor for each day during these 2 weeks, with the 10th day having a visitor repeated from the first week that it's scheduled. On Saturdays, KK's ladder visits, and on Sundays it's Daisy May. Additionally, there are 2 other visitors that visit at nighttime, Celeste and Wisp, and these can actually collide with the other visitors and pretty much don't have too many street rules. This is a much better system than what we previously had, especially because of the fact that you can have someone every single day. So this gives you motivation to at least enter and see who is currently visiting, and all of the visitors are meaningful in some way and provide some sort of task or service that can benefit you. So if you see a visitor in your town, you may want to think if you want to talk to them and do their quest or use the service that they provide. In this game, the seasons are more meaningful than ever before. In previous games, you had the season change the look of the town, and usually they would also have some holiday to go along with them. This time around, each of the 4 seasons brings several sets of seasonal DIY recipes, alongside exclusive materials needed for these items that only drop on the specific season. For many players, these items allow them to decorate their own towns following the current time of the year, which makes it also more engaging if you are into doing this. These players would decorate accordingly and swap the theme of once the season had changed once again. It's an added bonus that brings more substance to the game. Now let's talk about events and holidays. For some events, previous games would host them on their date with someone at the plaza that would give you an item related to what was being celebrated, like Groundhog Day for example. And that was pretty much it, an item and some small flavored text about the event itself. However, some of these events were actually region locked on some games, and would only happen on specific versions of the game, like the America region, Europe or Japan. In New Horizons, they removed the fact that some character would be giving out the item, but they also removed the regional barrier, and now you are able to order the items related to the event in a specific time frame close to the event date, from the seasonal tab at the Nook catalog. Doing it this way not only allowed the region lock to be removed, but also for way more special events or holidays from all around the world to be represented and items related to them to be added to the game. The only thing I dislike about this is that they offer a text description for the events on the catalog tab, but they don't really acknowledge them elsewhere. The only exception for this being the Lunar New Year, which Isabel did mention on her broadcast during February. Other than this, at least a post on the bulletin board would be appreciated, since the board is barely used. The game stopped sending letters when new seasonal items are available, which I find odd, as this happened for the most part of the year that passed, but stopped around November. So now you probably want to keep checking the seasonal tab frequently to see if any new items are available. Even though we already completed 1 year, they seem to keep adding even more of these, so expect a lot of variety every month with different events being represented. Now, as for the main holidays, they were initially not included on the base game, and instead got added through updates, sometime prior to the date of the holiday itself. These also were protected with a time lock so that people were unable to access them before their date arrived in real time, restricting time travelers from experiencing the holidays before they were supposed to. However, after the actual date had happened, you were able to time travel back to them and replay them if you wanted. I personally believe this approach was good, as it prevented impatient people from rushing all the new stuff as quickly as they could, the same type of people that were likely to go online and complain about supposed lack of content in the game, when them rushing to see everything as fast as possible was the real problem. This game is supposed to be a life simulator, so having the holidays only be able to be accessed when they were supposed to goes along the theme, and for those that wanted, they could go back later on. As for the content and function of the holidays themselves, a great improvement from past games is that instead of happening during a single day, they made them a bit like a season. You have an entire days or weeks before to prepare for the main event, and on the day itself of the holiday, you would use what you had prepared in order to do the specific activity of the holiday. Not all events operate like this, but some do, and it's a welcome change of pace, because it allows you to take your time while collecting the exclusive items, and reduces the grind of having to do all in a single day, which was annoying when the holidays landed on a weekday especially. Other good improvement is that for most holidays, the items rewarded for them were made into DIY recipes, some of which don't even require exclusive materials to craft, so this allows you to make as many of them as you want, compared to the finite items you could get on the holidays from previous games, usually being one piece of each item from a set. They have also made some of the events have items purchasable at the Nook shop during the preparation period, which again makes it a bit easier to collect what you want. Finally, to finish off the main features of the game, I want to talk about the multiplayer, mainly the online. From a technical standpoint, this game has one of the best online netcodes from recent Nintendo games. I had a very bad internet up until July of last year, and even then I was able to have a decent experience playing online. There was not much lag despite my faulty connection, and I barely experienced disconnections. I even managed to play a full 8-player lobbies with my weak connection. After I upgraded my network, I have not had any issues while online playing. I'm comparing it to other Nintendo titles, as they usually have similar infrastructure, and you probably know how bad games like Smash Bros or Splatoon can get at times. As for playing online, you are able to play with up to 8 people, double of what you were able to do previously. I was not expecting that they would increase the 4-player limit, but them doing so was a pleasant addition. It allows you to have even more people on the same island to play with. There is now a best friends feature on which you can add people already on your friend list too, and doing so not only allows you to chat with them while online but not on the same town, but also grants them the permission to use access and shovels on your own town. Every other player will not have these permissions. This allows you to manage who can actually affect your town, because other players will be completely unable to negatively affect your town. They will not be able to cut down your trees or steal your flowers, and even if they do pick up or run over your flowers, the damage will be completely undone when 2 days pass, as they simply grow back. The only real danger is them taking items you have dropped on the ground, in which case it's up to you to not have the items you don't want to lose hanging around, to prevent some ill-will person from taking them, if you are hosting for random people, that is. They added the Dodo code system as well, which allows you to host an island with a 5-digit code that can be easily entered by others to visit you, without having to add you to friends. This feature allows for quick setup sessions for different types of activities, as people often arrange with other players to trade, play custom minigames, or host their island for people to explore and maybe get inspiration. A lot of online sites and platforms have been created to play online with others thanks to this feature. It's more convenient and quick compared from previous games, where you had to add people to friends to play with them and had limited friend space for doing so. As for what can you do online, well, it's mainly just visiting other towns, same as previous games. However, the minigame island that was added on New Leaf was sadly removed, for now at least. This could change later on. So people have had to create minigames on their own, which now actually has allowed for more things thanks to the outer furniture. Back when Cityfolk was the latest game released, people would make games with limited tools. This time around it was way easier, and there are some very creative things people have made. Of course, if you are playing with people you know, you would probably enjoy just visiting them and chatting while looking what they have made on their islands. A lot of people have a good time just from simple things like this. I have heard some complaints from people saying the online is annoying because of the loading screens, but keep in mind that every time someone visits another town, they need to download the host town so they are actually able to play on it. It's a side effect from how the game is built. There is not much that can be done about it without doing a complete overhaul, which is clearly unlikely to happen as an update. But overall, the online mode is pretty strong and vastly improved from previous games at their base structure. The reason I give it so much praise is because I experienced the online on the previous games, which presented constant disconnect issues, and most of them are gone on this one. Another thing I forgot to mention is that in this game, if someone has a faulty connection and disconnects, the lobby won't be instantly disbanded. In fact, there's instances where only one person gets kicked from the party and the rest remain on the island. This is way better because always in the previous games, if there was a slight disconnection issue for one person, the lobby would just straight up die. So the fact that this doesn't happen anymore is actually a great improvement as well, and that's why I praise this online so much. As for local play, playing with other consoles it's similar, except the best friend restrictions are not present, so mind who you let into your town within local play, as they will have full permission to do anything. As for the couch co-op, I didn't really experience that. I feel like it's a decent bonus that's good at it, but definitely not something you want to do a lot. The game is best when only one player is in control. While not technically in-game, the Nintendo Switch mobile app has some uses for this game. It started out pretty basic, but some more features got added, and it's possible more might come in the future. Currently, with this app, you are able to use your phone as a keyboard to chat with online play, both for current visitors and best friends. You can also use the reactions without going to the in-game menus. Some other features include looking at your profile, having your entire catalog on the app, scanning QR codes for custom designs to be ported directly into the game, and with the latest update, a reward system where you can check in daily to gain points and then redeem them to get them delivered in-game. These rewards are limited items and currently there are not many of them, but it is very possible that more might be added in the future. So I just described most of the main game mechanics and I focus on the positive impact these bring. However, there is nothing perfect in this world, and this game is far from being perfect. It really does deliver in a lot of aspects that a fan like me wanted for it to be. But there are some blatant flaws in the game that I really cannot ignore. So here I will mention some of them. You may have others to consider, but the ones I will point out are the biggest ones and the ones I can personally feel. First off, the fact that some core mechanics were put into the updates was a bit weird. I'm mainly talking about the museum art and diving creatures. Them not being on release was an odd move for players because you start collecting everything when you start playing, which for many was on release day. But you could only start filling out these sections of the museum only after the mechanic was even added in an update. For the art it wasn't that bad. It was about a month, and in-game you do need a specific amount of donations to even unlock the mechanic anyways, which for some players might take about this time. But for the diving, having it added 3 months after release messed up the schedule a little, because some creatures had already stopped spawning by the time diving was added, and people that do not time travel had to wait all the way until March to roll around again to complete their collection. Moving to another point, another big concern people have is the apparent lack of furniture. I had to re-record this several times because my research made me change my original points, but as it stands out, here's the thing. The game mainly focuses on outdoors furniture, stuff you would place outside for aesthetics, but also items internally cataloged as such. This is fine. After all, they are allowing you to place them outside for the first time. The problem then relies that there actually isn't that many indoor-focused items. This is mainly noticeable due to the fact that older games used to have a lot of indoor furniture collections, entire sets of about 10 or more items that completed a full theme. However, here in New Horizons, most of them are completely gone. Only about 5 purchasable furniture collections remain, and some others that are part of DIY. However, there is this big void that many players feel due to the removal of these items. In fact, it's so crazy that there are very little unique tables, a type of item that is extremely important for displaying smaller stuff, yet you don't have many options to choose from if you need one. So due to this fact, I originally thought the game had a small amount of furniture items. I even thought that City Folk on the Wii had more items. However, after looking into the numbers, currently New Horizons does have more items than City Folk had, at least according to a list I found online. However, it is also true that it has way less items than New Leaf. Looking into the numbers, New Horizons has a little over half of the furniture items New Leaf had. It does have some good variety of individual items, but it's a bit of a shame that some items that were apart from bigger sets in the past, in New Horizons there is only 1 or 2 items of this former series. It leaves a lot to be desired for indoor decoration. It's very strange that they never added furniture back besides the holiday themed items, but it's something I hope in the future that gets brought back. At times it feels like you can only do some very specific set of decorations on your house due to not having that many items to choose from. While on this topic, I do want to point out that some people will compare with Pocket Camp, saying how that game adds so many items, but the thing is, Pocket Camp is a free-to-start mobile game. These games require constant updates so people are kept engaged and active, some of which are willing to spend money on the microtransaction systems they implement. So while it is true that Pocket Camp gets more stuff added, it's because of the business model that that game has. It's not entirely fair to compare the two directly, but I do get where people come from to do so. Another thing to point out is that there are some NPCs that have been in most games of the franchise, but currently they are not back. As I said before, currently we have 9 characters that can visit during the weekdays. I will admit that if they add more than 1 new character, the 2-week system of scheduling would get affected, but I'm sure that some characters can get added back for more variety of the visitors, and in fact not necessarily be a visitor. Out of the bat, Nook could come back and maybe give out exclusive patterns that could have better textures on them. Stuff you can't make yourself. That would be an incentive for his inclusion. In case you don't know, in Wild World and City Folk, he gave out designs for every individual consumable item the games had, including fishes, so there was a lot he gave out. We can easily share player designs now, but this doesn't mean they can do something with him. Gracie could be added to give out exclusive clothes or furniture. In fact, if we ever have another Nook shop upgrade, she can be there again like in New Leaf, making her not take up a visitor spot. Katrina was actually sort of added on the Nintendo Switch Online app for the latest version. While claiming Nook points, she gives out a message. We are not sure at this point if this is the way they are, quote-unquote, adding her to this game, or if it's a small teaser for her to be added back soon. Katie and Caitlin maybe could come back, but they need a better mechanic than just visiting the other towns, since not all players can do this easily. Brewster is another character that has been heavily discussed to potentially return, as the villagers actually had some lines regarding drinking coffee on the early update versions of the game. However, these lines were mysteriously removed in a later update. People have theorized if Brewster returns, Gyrots will come back with him. There was also some data mine early on in the game suggesting a third upgrade of the museum, where his shop would likely be, returning how it was in the older games. However, we have not heard from this in a while. Resetti being put only as a voice was slightly disappointing for me. If he could be given another role, it would be cool. It's sad to know his character model isn't even in the game. One of the NPCs people want the most back is Capon, and with him Tortimer Island, to have those multiplayer mini-games back. In fact, in New Horizons it would be way better. In New Leaf you were never able to save your progress while on the island, and this made it so if you got a disconnection error during your minigame sessions, you would lose all of your medals earned on that session. New Horizons being a home console should have a more stable netcode, and from experience I know it has, so this issue would likely be gone. It's something people really want and hope comes soon. Now, as for more interesting stuff regarding NPCs, thanks to the data mining of version 1.9, people found that the files regarding the musical jingle for talking to NPCs were actually updated for Lottie, the character introduced in Happy Home Designer, who works for the HHA. The fact that this information was updated for her heavily suggests she might get added in the future in some way, so we might have that to look forward to. Besides this, some of the other NPCs that have existed would actually be obsolete. Harriet, for example, is not needed because you can change your hair on your own. Same goes for the male office characters and some of the other ones. Unless they either modify their roles or give them some exclusive things only they can provide, it would not be necessary for some of the characters that are remaining to be back. Another giant issue this game has is that there is very little dialogue the villagers can say. I have experienced times where two villagers say the exact same dialogue lines one after the other when I'm talking to them, because they share the same personality type. The lack of dialogue is so notorious that you can actually get tired of talking to the villagers because of the fact that you hear the same stuff over and over. It breaks the immersion. I'm well aware that these are just digital characters, but at the same time I personally did grow up playing these games, and to me the villagers were like friends. Even in the old games the dialogues would eventually repeat, of course, but it is extremely noticeable in New Horizons that the dialogue variety is so small, the same lines end up playing too close to each other. So this practically makes for players to have a broken immersion of supposedly talking to these characters. I'm unsure if they ever plan to address this issue. It seems they focus more on other features of the game and less this unchecked, and the result is very lacking. Now, to finish up with a part of the problems I see in the game, there are several smaller topics that all fall into quality of life features that you would think that would be in the game, but somehow they are not. First off is bulk crafting when you have enough materials. You should probably be able to craft a specific amount of an item if you have enough resources to afford several crafts, but also if you have the pocket space to store them. This issue is mainly observed with fishbait. Sadly, the reality is that you have to individually craft each item. People have asked for this since release and it never arrived. Continuing with crafting, you also should probably be able to craft items while inside your house if you have enough resources in your storage, but this does not happen. You need to hold them in your inventory. This is pretty ironic considering that the game actually scans to check how many of the actual crafting item results you have on your storage, yet you are unable to craft with the resources saved in there. Next up is not being able to buy some items in bulk. Items like customization kits, flower seeds, and some others allow you to buy in bulk, but only partly. You can buy either 1 or 5. It would be more convenient if, again, you had to toggle to select how many you want to buy, as long as you have enough bells and inventory space to store them. But this is not a thing. Same thing when buying from the Able Sisters. If you want to buy several items from their wardrobe, you can't buy more than one item that occupies the same body part at once. And again, it's funny because whatever you buy will end up going to your storage anyway, yet you are unable to select multiple items at once, like all the colors of a hat for example. You need to go one by one and buy them all. Honestly, I keep wondering whether or not some of these features will ever make it into the game, because it almost shows that they have no interest in trying to fix these issues that the community wants so much. Now, this final topic is not necessarily a problem in the game, but I see it as a weird thing. When the game started getting its initial updates, they added smaller events that would take place around the middle of each month. Stuff that gave us an extra thing to do while the main holidays on the later months arrived. I'm talking about stuff like Nature Day, May Day, and National Museum Day, which happened from April through May. Also on June was wedding season all month. But then July came, and the game updates completely stopped adding these smaller events. They added diving for the summer, but this is a main game mechanic, not an event. and then pretty much stopped with the smaller holidays at this point. It's possible that because the game sold so well, they probably had more of these activities planned, but rather saved them for future years to have the big player base the game had gained more content along the way. The problem is, this did hurt the immediate reception. As I said, this is not technically an issue, but it's an oddity on how they stopped with these activities some months after they started introducing them. With this, I am concluding this section about flaws of the game. There might be more, but these are the ones that I have more heavily noticed and that can remember at the moment. Now what I would like to do is, since I played this game for an entire year, what exactly did I do or what exactly did I achieve? How did I manage to play every single day? Well, I did a lot of stuff. Once again, keep in mind that since I like this franchise a lot, it's why I played all this time. In a way, I actually did a promise to myself to actually play every day. It was a bit of a goal or an objective I set to myself, and that's why I did it. So I do have a bit of a checklist. First than anything, I want to detail what did I do every day. Well, you know that in this game you basically have a lot of daily activities, and you should try to seek them out every day to get most of your day. So an average day for me was just get in, look for who the special visitor was, and do their task if I required it. I would go around town and pick up the weeds that spawn. There's some weeds that spawn every day, so you don't want them cluttering your town. You want to keep it clean. Initially there were also some sticks that spawn around. However, I eventually found a way to make them stop spawning by just placing some resources elsewhere in town, so I didn't have to worry about those. If there was seasonal stuff, like when in fall, you know, there's those special things that fall from trees, the pine cones, so I would do that, seek that. In winter I would do the snowmen. All of this stuff, I would check out the stores, buy stuff that I didn't own or that I wanted. Basically stuff like that. And the eventual fishing, the eventual bulk catching. That was my average day. I played pretty much constantly, at least 30 minutes a day, up to December. And in January I started to decrease because I did most of the stuff. There was not much new. I was mainly just waiting for the Festivali update. But yeah, I did pretty much play for 9 months, at least 30 minutes, sometimes even more than an hour a day. And I enjoyed it. I didn't really get tired of it. I enjoy doing that stuff because this is the kind of chill game that it is, and I like just being able to relax for a bit. Now, as for stuff that I did in game, achievements that you would say, I actually collected all of the DIYs. It's kind of a big feat, to be honest. It took me a while. During the first month I mainly played by myself, but starting the second month of the game and for about the next 2 months, I really went online and started collecting stuff and trading with other players so I could grow my collection. I eventually managed to get all of the non-seasonal DIYs, and eventually, as the years moved on, since I do not time travel, I got the rest of the recipes that were seasonal or event based. So by now I actually finished getting the final Zodiac one and the Shamrock one that released, and I believe I have every single DIY in the game right now, and I've crafted all the items as well. I think that's a very amazing feat. I completed all of the museum. For fish, bugs and sea creatures, this is just following the schedule, of course. I finished up basically with the marine creatures that spawned here in March again. For the art, I did have to trade like a lot, like look up online if people had the red in their shops, trying to find myself some real art so I could trade for others on stuff like that. It took some time and bargain with different people, but I was able to do it as well. You definitely do need help for this one because sometimes the rates for when he brings stuff you don't know are pretty bad. But that's exactly the point that this game has, and Nintendo openly acknowledges this, that players should work together to try to complete. It's too bad that there are a lot of people charge a lot for this stuff. It's ridiculous, but I try to walk away from those toxic people, and sometimes there's others that are just willing to give it to you, or just for a couple bells or some smaller items. That is fine. I believe I got most of the furniture that it's purchasable. I like compared a list of all the items versus my catalog, and I think I'm just missing like 2. Just by playing, I didn't even actively seek them, only when I was missing like less than 10. I tried to, if I saw something, try to get it. That's pretty much it. Proof that there is very few furniture items in the game, because honestly there's not that many. Something that I'm very proud of is that I got almost all of the fish and bug collectible models. Most of them I actually caught myself, like I caught 3 versions of each, and believe me, some of them have really astronomically low rates of appearance, like the cicada shell, something like that. There are 2 that I couldn't get myself, the scorpion, because I just had bad luck and I couldn't catch them, so I just bought it from someone, and the mahi mahi. I got the initial one myself, but I just did not have luck from his spawn time to get another 3, in fact, because it's 3. So I did buy those 2 from people. But besides, I collected at least 3 of all of the other bugs and fishes and made models out of them. I think that's probably not many people try to do that. I'm not done. I have some fishes that I still need the models made of. I just need the Wixipasso cheap junior arrays at my town. And for bugs I'm missing like 2 flies to catch, but they just won't spawn, but they will spawn eventually since they are all year round. So that's another big feat that I did. It's like a goal that I set myself to do, and I pretty much did it. I collected all of the Kikus Ladder songs. These were basically checking on the kiosk from Nook, seeing what they had. If I was missing, I would order it, and also requesting it from himself. I filled all of the lapel clothes and the Pascal items, like 2 visitors that I pretty much decked all that they offer. So I pretty much ignore lapel when she visits now because I don't need her anymore. I participated in all the events and all the holidays that happened throughout the year, of course. I played online a lot, going to other players' islands for trading, playing minigames, sometimes just exploring and chilling in their islands, you know. Since it's so easy, there are several service pages that you can just put your Dota code and you can host your island there. They manage your queue, and there is a lot of websites and Discord groups that you can join to, you know, just find people to play with. Sometimes for trading, sometimes for just chilling around. There's something for everyone, and it's very easily accessible. I completed most of the Nook's Mouse cards. The only ones that I haven't done are like the really big stretch goals, like catch 5,000 fish. I'm actually missing like 1,000 or something like that. Bugs I'm missing like 2,000. Marine creatures I'm missing like 1,000. There's a lot for crafting. I think you need to craft 3,000 of different types of items, furniture and tools. Yeah, I'm missing quite some of those. I am hoping to complete them someday. I might have to actively grind, but I think it's doable, right? In a long run, or at least if you're actively looking for it like I am, like yeah, I might just dedicate some time eventually to do that. As for my playtime, I probably have over 1,000 hours, and the reason I'm not confident about this is because I transferred my console to a new Switch, because I bought one in December for the Animal Crossing edition that I couldn't buy before. And the way that I transferred it is that I kept my old one. So the way that the Switch tracks the hours, it's locally. So right now it says that I have 800 hours, but it's been 800 hours for 4 months basically. And because of Nintendo emails, I am confident that I've played at least 200 hours more, because they tell you that in the emails that they send at times. So yeah, I probably have over 1,000 hours, but I don't know for sure if I at one point actually pass 800 hours on my new console, then the number will actually update. Though I do play a bit on my second console because I have a second town. I haven't really done much on it, but I will. Eventually I want to build something on it. So when I do play on the other console, it updates the number when I increment by 5 hours. But on the main console that I use now, it's not incrementing. I think I kind of screwed up in there. Probably wanted to do a full transfer, but I wasn't fully aware of the process. It's a bit bothersome for me, but well, whatever. I know that I played the game a lot, so I'm satisfied with that. And with all this time, you think that I'm probably pretty much done with my town, but as a matter of fact, no. My town is actually pretty natural based, like I didn't even terraform too much. I wanted to keep the default form that they gave me and stick with that, so I pretty much did. I only like trimmed a bit of the cliffs to make more space in parts, but most of the average structure that it randomly generated for me, it's still there. And I don't have like a super themed island or town. No, I just have like a natural. I kind of wanted to recreate a classic Animal Crossing town with some stuff that with what you can do now with the furniture, of course. But it's mainly like a natural theme. And I am actually, there's still some stuff that I want to do. Set up some items in some parts. I have like an entire orchard with fruit trees that I want to tear down actually, and maybe put like a showcase area for event items. Might get around it sometime in the future, but I'm actually not done with it. And since I have a second town now, I do have some plans for it. Probably not gonna get around doing them for now, since I'm using that town just as a storage for flowers and some items for now. But I definitely will tackle that sometime in the future, like I won't get bored for a bit. I might space it out now, like I don't really plan to continue playing every single day after this. Well, after I complete the golden shovel that I'm still missing. But after that I will probably take a bit of a rest and just play every now and then. But well, yeah, that's basically my experience on my town. Before giving some final thoughts for the video, I want to discuss what we can expect for the future. Now that an entire year has passed, seasonal stuff will start looping around, and this gives us some insights onto what to expect and when. The reason I say this is that the 1.9 version update brought some interesting changes we had not seen before. On that update, some events got disabled from the game. Bunny Day 2020 was completely deleted. You can't go back to 2020 and do that event on 1.9. We had to wait for the 2021 version to happen, which was this past week as of the editing of this video. Also, Nature Day was removed from 2020. So what this tells us is that either we will get some update prior to the real life Earth Day, which happens around April 22nd, so that the event happens again on 2021, or that they actually deleted Nature Day and only plan to feature it as a seasonal item to order, which was already announced on their website. If they make this change, I think it would be bad, considering that Nature Day was a different event, with some stuff to do that you don't usually have. Moving on, it's extremely likely we will get an update before April ends, because the same way that events got removed from 2020, there are also no events currently programmed for 2021. Only when the 1.9 update is that Bunny Day 2021 was programmed to happen. Currently, none of the other events will trigger in 2021, because the latest version did not modify them. This tells us, at the very least, that we can expect either one update to enable all the events in 2021, or frequent updates every other month to trigger the holidays sometime before their dates. As for what else could we expect from future updates, as I said earlier, I have the belief that some smaller holidays were set to happen every other month, but eventually got cut for a potential future release, since they only added the bare minimum that was expected for the last year, the main holidays. A statement from the team behind the game from around April 2020 said that due to the massive amount of sales this game got, they were hoping to support the game for about 2 to 3 more years. I'm not certain if they ever gave an update on this, but it's the only source of official statement I could find. For more concrete things we might be getting, as I mentioned, audio files for Lottie were updated recently, which could suggest her inclusion might happen soon in some way. Additionally, data miners found some evidence for Isabel announcing who is currently visiting your town, a feature that I believe would be great, as sometimes some visitors that roam around your town will be hard to find if you have several items or trees that might block where they are located. Now at least you would know who you are looking for. Now for some finishing thoughts, I want to share mainly my opinions. So, is this a good game? Well, if a good game is considered something that can entertain for many hours to make up for its price, then by all means, yes, it is a good game. The product has quality poured into it. Many of the aspects made a good experience, and in a more personal opinion, I had a blast playing. I set myself goals to achieve more than I ever did in previous titles, and that motivated me to continue playing every day to meet the goals I wanted to reach. I would not mention this under other circumstances, but due to the state of the world, I was able to enjoy this game even more than I would have been able. I started working full-time about 2 weeks prior to the release of the game, and because of the circumstances the world presented in 2020, I was able to be home and enjoy the game more, as I was able to play early in the morning before I started working, a bit more on my lunch break, and then in the afternoon. Even at times when I just had spare time during work, I would play from time to time. If nothing out of the ordinary had happened last year, I would have only been able to play the game at nighttime during the weekdays, but the pandemic helped me to see more of the game each day, and it enhanced my experience. In my spare time, I actually do play different games. Last year alone, I played several different titles, at least 3 of which were 100+ hour games, because I usually aim for achieving 100%, and I did for these games. Despite clearly focusing on other activities, I still found the time to play New Horizons every day and not have a detracting experience from it. Setting goals for what you want to achieve helps keep up the motivation to want to get them done, especially if you like the game. I fully know the game has many flaws, but I try to focus on the positive things and the stuff I actually could do in the game, especially what previous titles did not offer to experience to the fullest this time around. I have seen many cases of people going online and complaining about the game supposedly having no content. To be fair, the only main game mechanics not present in release were the art for the museum, the diving mechanics, and the dream suit. All of the other things added through updates, mainly related to holidays, and since they were doing the time restriction to block impatient people from rushing the events, this was fine for the most part. Yet people kept somehow saying they did not want to try the newly added stuff because the game had no content, which technically contradicts their own statement because they are precisely adding stuff for players to experience and acquire. Once again, I completely understand that the artwork and the diving critters, same for the dream suit, should have been there on release, but even then, having some new stuff added is precisely the strategy they are using to get people to play again in case they had stopped. The more people are interested in the game, the more potential sales they can get. This is how it works. Sometimes people just complain for the sake of complaining, or have no real basis to bash on what they are critiquing. If they don't try and experience the new stuff, then their argument really has no place to be. Then again, despite the developer saying they don't care if time travel, it's pretty clear that they intend people to play without this mechanic. If you actually experience the game on a day-by-day basis, you will take a while until you have seen all the stuff in the game. But there are many people that will rush as fast as they can all they can see, and then end up saying that they get bored because there's nothing left for them. I can only find these claims laughable. It's like they purposely are seeking to run out of things to do. I understand you can choose how to play your game, but you are only really harming your own experience by doing this. And I do understand wanting to fast forward days because some mechanics take a while to complete, but it's very likely that if you start using this mechanic, you will end up abusing it in the end, and that's why I don't personally do it. Another popular critique I see is when people compare this game with others in the franchise, sometimes saying that the GameCube game is better. While preference is subjective, this argument isn't entirely valid. New Horizons is the culmination of 20 years of polishing up what the franchise is, as a lot of mechanics from the older games can feel outdated when you compare them to their improved versions on New Horizons. I don't personally believe any of the mainline Animal Crossing games are bad. Each are good and offers their own charm. The GameCube version was the first and it's held dear by many, though at times this could be just as nostalgia. At the very least it's interesting to see where it all began. Wild World was the first jump into a portable device. Probably it's the least easy to get into nowadays, but it does hold its exclusive events not present in any other version, and it's a compact experience. Cityfall was pretty much an enhanced Wild World, but they changed the exclusive holidays in favor of a fully city area with new shops and services not seen before. Finally, New Leaf had the whole become a major gimmick that allowed you to more openly customize your town, while still being held by some restrictions, of course. At last, New Horizons is a game that gives you the most freedom you've ever had to modify your town outskirts, from furniture to straight up terraforming the terrain. Each of the games offer a specific feature only found in them, while keeping the core gameplay of Life Simulator it has cultivated throughout the years. So yes, it's valid to prefer another version, but don't just demerit all of the improvements that the core formula has had just because you dislike some aspect of the game. It's usually hard to try and discuss with a person that says things like this, because most of the times they really are just driven by nostalgia. Despite New Horizons being lackluster on some areas, it massively explored in some others, and that's why I share this belief of each game offering a unique experience. But most people just want the game to be everything the other was. If this was the case, why do developers make sequels? Some people only want the exact same thing they know, but oftentimes if they get it, they will then turn back on their choices and say they wanted new things. It's a never-ending vicious cycle for a lot of consumers. A final note on this topic, people also say that they find it crazy that New Leaf had more content, but this isn't actually true. New Leaf did have a shopping center on top of the town that hosted different shops. Because of the theme of being a deserted island, New Horizons doesn't have this. It doesn't fit. But now let's consider what New Leaf had and how New Horizons actually has most of it. I will show a visual on screen right now, but in a nutshell, from all the facilities in New Leaf, the only ones not present in New Horizons are Katrina, Nook homes to an extent, as you do have some house customization, but not as many as in New Leaf, the Street Pass Showcase, which is just not a feature in Switch, and lastly, the Roost. Everything else is either still in the game or made obsolete due to a change in the mechanics. Making the actual comparison lets you see that both games almost hold the exact same content, and New Horizons still has the possibility to improve and bring back some of the stuff not currently featured. And with this, I finished sharing all I wanted about this game. At the end of the day, I just wanted to share out my thoughts after having experienced this game for an entire year, and shed some light onto both the issues and the unfair judgments it gets often. I hope I was able to convey my message and that you enjoyed it. If you're interested in this game, I'll be uploading videos for all its events and main features in the coming months. The footage was recorded from my playthrough this past year, and I will edit them into videos soon. Some of them might be up already, so feel free to check my channel or the playlist I will link in the end card. Once again, thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye bye!